Good evening. Welcome. It's Tom Stoukas coming to you from Sarnia, Ontario on November 4th, 2025. Hopefully, everybody's having a nice day. Today, budget day, we're talking about this. The big budget came out, and our worst fears have been realized. We're screwed in Canada. They're doing it. They're doing it. An $80 billion deficit for this year. So basically, the government's going to spend 80 billion more than they make, but they're calling it investment. They're not calling it a deficit. And also changes. They announced changes in the budget to immigration levels, but they're still very high as far as I'm concerned. And lots of big projects, lots of military spending, all this. Like I'm sure there's going to be so much waste. And also big news is one of the Pierre's conservative MPs, this guy here, this smiling gentleman. I don't even know his name. From I'll find out. I have his name here. Where is it? Chris D'Entremont. He's from East Coast, I think Nova Scotia or New Brunswick. I don't know. But he left the Conservatives and he joined the Liberals just now. Breaking news. And that means the Liberals are two votes short of a majority. So they have to pass this budget that they just put in today. Horrible budget. And they're votes short. I wonder how many other fake Conservatives are going to do crossover from Pierre. I think Pierre's toast if this happens, because they're clearly not happy with their own leader. I wonder how many fake Conservatives are lurking about. So yeah, big story in Ottawa today between the budget and this defection. And now we got to focus. Now the focus is on if there's going to be an election or not, which I don't think there will be. I think the fact that this guy crossed over has just basically guaranteed there's not going to be an election. They should be able to get the NDP or who knows, maybe two more Conservatives. Maybe someone from the Bloc, who knows. A lot of spending goodies, maybe. Convince them to come over. And it's funny, Carney's stealing all Pierre's ideas. He's saying about immigration cuts, they are cutting the student visas, but they're keeping everything else. But and temporary workers, I think. So they're stealing Pierre's immigration kind of policy. They're doing military spending, and something else of his. Well, they're stealing his MPs too. So, yeah, it seems like Carney's copying all of Pierre's. They're cutting public service jobs, according to the budget. So it's like he's taking all Pierre's issues. It's hilarious. So let's look at the day that was then. So that's the main things today. The immigration numbers are interesting, and the size of the deficits obviously huge. All right, let's go to start of the day here. Yeah, we're screwed. And even if Carney did go to an election, he'd probably win because most of the people in Canada are voters are immigrants, especially new recent immigrants. The elbows up crowd, and the fake conservative crowd. They all vote for Carney. So Canada's big trouble. Okay, let's keep it Canadian here. This is another thing. Liberals backed. So the sorry, I'm gonna look at this here. Bill C3, they passed that bill that would, let's say, for birthright citizenship, that means, let's say you're Canadian, you become a Canadian, and then you move to another country and you have kids, and they're not born in Canada. You're not born in Canada, but you became a Canadian citizen. So those kids, under this law, lets them become automatically Canadian citizens as long as they spend a few vacation days in Canada or something. They don't even have to speak English or French. So yeah, lots of immigration loopholes. So even if they say we're going to cut immigration levels, which they said they were going to do, but only it's a very small cut. Or if they're going to cut student visas, they're going to find another way to come in. Like, it's so slippery, the system. And this birthright citizenship, like, what if Buddy has 12 kids in another country? There's 12 new Canadians, who are entitled to the Canadian milk and honey, as Don Cherry would say. So there it is. That's Bill C3. Second generation, not born in Canada, can now give citizenship to their kids. They just need 1,095 vacation days in Canada, no language test and no security check. 115,000 people will receive citizenships with no connections to Canada. So I guess that's retroactive. So yeah, they just want to make it easier and easier to debase the Canadian passport. Like, instead of making people work for it, or they just want to open it up, like treat it like a Costco membership. And here it is. I saw this yesterday. They're advertising on YouTube how the free education in Canada works for when you come and bring your 10 kids that don't speak English. And I heard a radio commercial today from the teachers union, how they're overloaded the classrooms in Ontario. And that's because all these refugees and mass migration from the third world, they bring in their kids. The kids don't speak English, but they're going to send them to the school, and the school has to deal with them. I'm sure the teachers aren't happy about it, but they won't say anything because they're either woke or they're afraid of getting fired or being called racist. Another story, the Canadian government, in another Bill C12, wants to have the right to cancel visas en masse from certain countries. In certain countries they're talking about India and Bangladesh. And it's because they got a problem with India. There's all the refugee claimants from India are fake. Most of the student visas are fake credentials. They know it, and I think the States is bugging them about all the Indians coming into Canada, because a lot of them sneak over to the States. And I think the States, I think they were involved in these internal documents. There was some American component to it. They're probably saying, no, you got to start canceling, start letting in millions of Indians. But I think the bottom line is most of them are scammers. I mean, the Indian immigrants we took, the ones we should take have already been taken 35, 40 years ago. Like the ones we have taken now, they're not adding any benefit to Canada. They're just sucking it dry. So yeah, I think this was kind of the U.S. initiative. They're telling us to slow down the avalanche or the flood. How is Lena Diab? Here's the Minister of Immigration. Not even born here, of course. Of course. To get into the cabinet, you're a better chance of being a foreigner to get into the Canadian cabinet. So how is Lena Diab, for the Minister of Immigration, even remotely qualified for a position? This is outrageous. Oh, this is talking about the hotel rooms in Niagara Falls. She has no idea where they all went after they were removed from the hotel rooms. You know where they're going to go? They're going to stay in Canada because Carney said in the budget today that they want to. I I said it before, amnesty for qualified refugees, give them permanent residence because right now they're in limbo and they don't deserve that. So yeah, all these guys that were in the hotel rooms, they'll be getting permanent resident cards. Let's see what she said.
As a result of taking 14 of the most
Oh, it's 5
prime
minutes.
location rooms.
Anyway, that's another thing in the budget. A lot of interesting stuff. We're going through it all here. All right. So a lot of news on immigration today. 74% of study permits from India have been rejected in August. Hopefully it's a new trend. Even India has been warning Canada of this. Now that we admit we have a problem, how about investigating everyone involved in all the previous visas? None of them had background checks. So yeah, all those millions of Indian students came in the last few years weren't students. They were they were migrants. And I was saying this for a long time. And I think they just couldn't hide it anymore. People knew it was a scam. So they have to actually start cutting the visas because it's just a joke. Like, these guys that come over, they don't even speak English and they're going to college. Like, serious. Fearing fraud. Canada rejects most Indian study permit applicants. But I think they'll find another way to come in. If it ain't going to be truck drivers, it'll be as daycare workers. It'll be something. If they close the refugee avenue, they'll find a different one. That's why you got to close everything. Close it all. All right. Liberals want to give away 100,000 citizenships to people who have never lived here with no criminal check, no language test, no citizenship exam. Pill C3 is a terrible idea that cheapens what it means to be Canadian. Yes, the debasement of the passport. It's probably harder to get a Costco membership these days. Or maybe the same effort. Okay. Instead of making it harder to get a passport, they're making it easier. Okay. So Ottawa seeking mass visa cancellation powers to deter fraud from India. Internal documents show, we talked about that, but I think they're just basically saying, yeah, it's all a bunch of scammers. So it's like, how is this allowed to happen? Like, I don't know what. Literally probably 95% of it are scammers that come in from India in the last 20 years. And when I say scammers, I mean they probably lied about all their credentials. Probably, had no intention of just coming as a student, We shouldn't be taking any Indian immigrants. Like, period. They come only to scam Canada of its milk and honey. Sorry, it's the truth. Not sorry, really. Okay. In a time when birthright citizenship needs to be restricted, the Liberals are giving it away. Children born to foreigners in foreign countries are now Canadian citizens. What are we doing? Yeah, the fact that they made it retroactive isn't even... And it's like, they're going to take advantage of it. Because if... especially if you have a lot of kids. All right. I'm seeing this more and more about school boards. Calgary Board of Education considering hiring language interpreters for regular classrooms, as 31% of the school district students are now learning English as a second language. I'm sorry, man. If 31% of your students are English as a second language, you're a third world country. Oh. I hate this connection. Yeah, that's bad. 31%. That's Calgary. Toronto's has the same issue. Toronto teachers are going crazy because they you know, they didn't sign up for that. I lost my picture. They signed up to teach, not to be the UN. But you know, I said they're too woke, or they're too beholden to the woke authorities there at the school to say anything, even though they want to. I'm gonna have to start talking to some teachers around here. Come on. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to go to. All right, we're back. So it's a big problem in the big cities. Teachers didn't sign up for that, and I think not just the teachers, but the students, the Canadian students. Kind of hard to get an education when none of your classmates speak English and your teachers spending more time with the interpreters. So how about stop flooding Canada? How about stop flooding Canada with third world migrants? Yes. Okay, teachers won't complain about this because they are woke or afraid of being canceled or called racist. Quite the dilemma. Okay. Budget will include, this is talking about Carney. The budget will include Carney's new immigration plan, which will likely forecast further cuts to temporary and permanent resident numbers. Yeah, we'll look at those numbers. There are cuts, but we need like huge, like basically down to zero. What bugs me is they want to basically add like legal immigrants, the equivalent of the city of London almost every year to Canada. And that's the permanent residents. And then on top of that, they want to add like another city of London or more of temporary residents. And you know, yeah, they're temporary, they're not permanent, but they still need doctors, they still need houses, they still clog up the traffic, you know. But we'll look at the numbers here. I saw this video in Brantford, a daytime home invasion. So not only they're doing it during the day now, the home invasions, they're spreading out from the GTA to Brantford in third world Ontario. It's a recent home invasion trend. Let's see what this says. I'm having
repeatedly with masks on.
here.
This is a public service announcement. These criminals are breaking into your homes by knocking at the door repeatedly with masks on to see if anybody is home. They're going to repeatedly do this. This is not normal.
This could happen in
Please send this to
Sarnia,
your
I
friends
bet.
and family. If you see somebody doing this with a mask on, knocking repeatedly like this, call the police.
They're going to come to smaller cities because
And do whatever
there's a
you
lot of
deem necessary to protect yourself and your children and your families. Because now he's going to leave with his criminal friends. Then they're going to come immediately back because they think nobody's at home right now. Now they're going to come back and break into the house. That's why it's so important that if this happens, you scare them off. Make sure that they know
a lot of houses in Sarnia would be ripe for the picking for this type of thing.
you're home. Look at this. One shot, one shoulder into the door. They broke into the house. Now they're ransacking the house. This house, this family with 3 children, this happened in the middle of the day, in broad daylight. I have received 5 of these videos in the last 72 hours. This is what they're doing now. The reason this is happening, my friends, is because we have no consequences for criminals in this country. There are no stand your ground laws in this country. If I was running this country, there'd be stand your ground laws. If I was running this country, these offenses would mandate 10 years in jail minimum, no matter your age, on the first attempt. We have zero tolerance policies at Service Canada for raising our voices, but we have tolerance for the people terrorizing our families and children and our communities in our homes, in our sanctuaries. This is unacceptable. And look how quickly they broke into the house. The doors are basically like nothing. The doors give you a false sense of security, unfortunately, in this country. They broke it down. Look at this guy. He's maybe 160 pounds. He sticks, and he just broke into the house in one shot. That's why I've urged Canadians, fortify your homes. That's why I partnered with Canada First. They will come in and do a full complimentary home inspection so you can fortify your homes. Canadians, you
Purge.
need to take
We're in the
protection
purge
your
style
own hands,
now.
and you should do whatever it takes necessary to protect your family and your children. So please make sure, if you see this, please make sure you call the police. Make sure you do your individual plan of how to address these situations. Every family needs to have an action plan. What you do, rehearse it when somebody comes in to try to break into your house. But the first thing and the best thing you can do is fortify your house. Put multiple lines of defense while you call the police, because
We get it, yeah. So I could see this totally happening in Sarnia because there's a lot of money in Sarnia, and they need new territory. Criminals are always looking for new territory. So, and there's always delivery trucks every day in Sarnia. So I could totally see this happening. Ripe for the picking. First Brantford, next Sarnia. And it's not going to be like crackheads home invasion. It's going to be a thug home invasion. It's just a matter of time. Here's this. Look at this. Doug Ford. We were talking about him yesterday. He was. Thankfully we didn't hear from him today. He was blabbing a lot yesterday. Majority of Ontarians say their province is heading in the wrong direction, according to a poll. Yeah, I've been saying that since COVID. It's weird how people finally starting to figure out, but even if you get rid of Doug Ford, there's going to be another dummy that comes in until you fix the whole political system. The whole party, like, there's no really any political party that represents will of the people. Until you fix that, it doesn't matter if they get rid of Doug Ford. But yeah, majority of Ontarians say their province is heading in the wrong direction. Resign. I said Trump's going to find some dirt on Doug Ford to get rid of him. He doesn't like him. Okay. Let's see. Just 1/3 of Ontarians say their province is heading in the right direction. Polling finds that despite Premier Doug Ford having an approval rating of 45%, I still don't understand that. A majority, 55% of Ontarians believe the province is on the wrong track. Only 33% say the province is on the right track. Ontarians are growing more pessimistic, said Jennifer McLeod. Okay. So I don't know how he has this 45%. I mean, 45% is nothing to brag about either. Like, usually over 50 is considered acceptable. But the fact that 3/4 of the province thinks we're going in the wrong direction is pretty bad, I think, for Ford. I think they're going to hopefully they get rid of him. But like I said, it doesn't matter if they get rid of Doug Ford. They're still going to run the province into the ground. We just, won't have to look at this fat traitor. That's all. That's the only difference. All right. What's next? I saw this. I've heard this. TD Bank report confirms that most of us already knew. Reduced immigration means less strain on housing, easing rent and home prices, while also lowering unemployment and boosting per capita spending. It's simple economics. When demand cools, affordability and opportunity improve for Canadians. Hardly a surprise, but it's refreshing to see the data finally reflect what everyday people have been feeling for years. So that's a bank report on immigration. I don't think you need to be a bank economist to figure that one out, but they still need to cut it more. Still, rents are in real estate way too high still for anybody, but especially young people. But they need to cut it way more than they're proposing. I like how they said Mark Carney, he's framing this $80 billion deficit as an investment instead of a deficit. See, the words matter. To build Canada strong, we will protect, what's it saying? Our sovereignty and our way of life. Budget 2025 invests more than $80 billion over the next 5 years to rearm the Canadian Armed Forces and to build thriving defense industries and new career opportunities across Canada. So there he's getting his military, he's taking Pierre's military mojo, but it's funny, the deficit's $80 billion, but he's saying $80 billion in investments, so it's an investment. All right, here's the numbers. Included in today's budget was the updated immigration levels plan for 2026 to 2028. Carney government is reducing the target from 395,000. I think this is permanent residents. From 395 to 380 for the next 3 years. So that's still almost a new city of London every year. I think London has got a little more than 400,000, but it's around that. So they're adding a new London every year of permanent residents. That seems a little high still, like really high. But they're making big cuts in student visas and temporary workers. So, but there's still going to be 385,000 coming in 2026 of temporary workers and students. So between that and the permanent residents, that's 700, over 700,000 people a year who are going to need houses, who are going to need doctors, who are going to need schools. So it's not really a big cut at all. It's almost like it may be cut from the craziness of Trudeau's, wide open immigration, but it still seems like a lot of people because you're letting in almost over 700,000 people per year. Half of them are going to be permanent, half of them are still temporary, but they still need the resources. And still, permanent residents, that's another thing. It doesn't mention about countries of origin, how it's so skewed towards India. It doesn't say anything about that. All right. Lots of reaction to it. Budget 2025 proposes turning protected persons, aka refugees, and all the people who scam their way into and under the title to be recognized as permanent residents over the next 2 years. It will also cost over $120 million. They are also proposing to take 33,000 work permits and turn them into permanent residents. This is how they game the numbers. They are also planning to allow in under 168,000 new refugees over the 3 years. So yeah, they want to do like an amnesty. Not an amnesty because they're basically saying the qualified refugees should be permanent residents right away. They want to speed that up, but also 33,000 temporary workers they want to give them So it's like a little amnesty because a lot of those temporary workers are set to expire. I don't know. I think it's just fluff for the peasants to say, "Oh yeah, here we're cutting immigration." They're not cutting immigration. Carney's budget also includes expenditures to streamline asylum claimants and temporary workers becoming permanent residents. Yeah. So, it's just going to encourage more refugees. And especially now, if you see in Africa, there's going to be a bunch of wars and more people getting killed. So I'm sure they'll be all showing up here. Obviously, we don't want people getting killed, but Africa's a pretty big place. They don't need to come here, you know. But this kind of stuff is going to just bring more and more to this country. And like I said, the verdict's still out if we're going to have an election. I don't think we're going to have an election, especially now. Like I always said, the NDP was going to support the budget because they have no leader, they have no money, and the last thing they need is to run an election. But now the Conservatives are going over to the Liberals. It's not just the NDP, it's the Conservatives. You got this guy. Who knows what they bribed him with, but he's obviously not happy with Pierre. He's one of those liberal Conservatives, just like Doug Ford, basically. So he says, this is old. He said he's considering, but he's confirmed that he is joining the Liberals. The question is, how many more are lurking about? So now the Liberals are too short of a majority. So yeah, I think this budget's going to get passed. Commie Canada. Commie Canada, woke Canada is still alive and well. Okay, Nova Scotia MP. Okay. The stunning twist moves Mark Carney one step closer to a secure hold on the Prime Minister's office until 2029. Yeah, Pierre's toast. If any more MPs, I think he's toast already. But if any more move over, he's toast. Like, very toast. Here's another comment on the Liberal immigration budget numbers. This is insane. Liberal Prime Minister Mark Carney quietly announced a $120 million amnesty for refugee and asylum claimants in Canada over the next 2 years. Nearly 500,000 asylum claimants in Canada right now as of 2025. So 500,000 are waiting in the system to be processed. That's a big amnesty. Now he says those in genuine. He said the government here says eligible protected persons. So only eligible refugees will get fast tracked to permanent residence. But who knows how many they could out of the 500,000 are eligible? Probably about out of the 500,000 it'll be like 490,000. Bad. It's bad. This is it, you know. If they let all these, if Carney lets in all these people, and amnesty's the ones that are already here, from till 29, Canada it's never gonna be Canada first ever, or it'll be very difficult. And that's the plan, is to flood it for a few years, and then by then it's too late. So by 29 it'll be too late. So that's what you get with Pierre Poilievre. He throws the election, gives the Liberals another 4 years to screw us. Thanks, Pierre. Okay. How many more will follow? Is Pierre Poilievre toast? So Chris Entremont, this just happened, has officially crossed the floor from the Conservatives to the Liberals, as per a statement from D'Entremont via the Liberal Party. So let's see what he says. Earlier this afternoon, upon the presentation of the 2025 budget, I informed the Leader of the Opposition that I had resigned from the Conservative caucus. After serious consideration and thoughtful conversations with constituents and my family, I came to a clear conclusion that there is a better path forward for our country and a better path forward for my riding, I guess. Mark Carney's offering the path with a new budget that hits the priorities I have heard most of my riding to build strong community infrastructure and grow a stronger economy. That's why I'm joining the government caucus. After 5 years of serving in opposition, The people of my riding and all Canadians know that the moment we face today needs all of us to lead, not with complaint, but with confidence in a strong future. This is an important moment for the country to come together, and I'm looking forward to working with the Prime Minister to build strong and economic future that all our communities deserve. Yeah. That's a little bit of a dig at Pierre complaining. So, here's another bad news thing about the budget. Not only is the budget horrible, big deficit, bad on immigration. It's going to spend billions on military, but if you have a woke military, that's probably billions wasted. But not only is bad in all those things, but also they're also giving out millions of more to the corrupt media. So CBC, look at all this money. Millions and tons of millions of dollars for media. And you know what the commies did? The Bolsheviks, when they took over Russia, they paid a lot of attention to funding of the media. So, 127 million over 3 years for the Canadian Media Fund to support Canada's audiovisual content creators. So yeah, like basically the bankrupt media companies of Canada. Global is one of them. A lot of them. What about CBC? $150 million more for CBC. So yeah, their $1 billion budget gets more. So yeah, they gotta take care of their media. Their media stooges, to broadcast their message. Gotta grease those wheels. So yeah. What's Keenan Beck say about? Hopefully Pierre Poilievre learns a lesson from this. No centrists. That's hilarious. How many more fake conservatives are lurking about the Conservative Party? Okay. Here's another reaction to the Carney immigration numbers. Carney's very first immigration levels plan is out, and it increases numbers. Under Trudeau, permanent resident admissions were set to fall to 365,000 a year. Under Carney, it will be 380,000 a year. Mass immigration will continue unchecked. Yeah, that's what I said too. It's like, by the time 2029 comes and there's another election, even if a conservative who's actually a true conservative, which it won't be because it'll probably be Doug Ford, even if a total diehard conservative was the leader and became elected prime minister, he'd have to start deporting people the next day. That's what's going to happen. And there ain't going to be a conservative leader that's a true Canadian leader. So even if there is a Canadian, a change in government, it's going to be too late. Look, something else definitely needs to be done. Needs to be stopped, basically. But Pierre handed him an election win. I don't know how they lost that lead. It's like the Blue Jays leaving all those men on base. All right. Here's an interesting thing. And this is the thing about Africa, is we're going to get a lot of refugee claims from Africa. And Africa is kind of like India without the connections and the corruption and the scammers. I mean, the Indians are more organized in the immigration game, but Africans are in the same boat. They need to get out of Africa because it's a shithole, and they want to come to Canada. And they come through the refugee process. This guy's from Nairobi. No, where's Nairobi? Kenya. Okay. So this guy claims refugee status in Canada. says he's gay, says that he's getting extorted by gang in Nigeria and Kenya threatening to expose his sexuality. The gang found him even after he moved from Nairobi to Mombasa, and that his wife, who remains in Mombasa with their children, continues to pay extortion payments. Fearing gang members as well as Kenyan authorities and society more broadly, he sought refugee protection in Canada. So yeah, that's what's going to happen. Every, sad tale out of Africa is going to come into the refugee board in Canada, and they're going to give them the PR under Carney's plan, and it's just going to be a flood, man. Milk and honey. They're taking the milk and honey, and the reason they're leaving, of course, they're coming from failed states, but at some point, it's like we can. How many? You can't take everybody with a sad story and take care of them and pay for everything. They're like, it's just not sustainable. But yeah, this is the kind of stories that you get with the refugees. They'll say anything to stay here. The last thing they want to do is go back. So, a lot of basically all around bad news today. Not good news at all. Not good news at all. But sometimes things have to get worse before they get better. So, yeah, I don't see anything good. I don't see anything good today out of this budget. Maybe it'll get voted down and we'll have an election. But by the looks of it, the Liberals are going to have their majority the way if any more people cross over. I think it's hilarious. Pierre's totally toast. If usually there's more than one, but only one maybe has the guts to cross over. But it should be interesting to vote on the budget. I don't know when the vote is. Say, when is the budget vote here? Oh my God, when is the budget? When is the vote for the budget? So at least we know. Not U.S., Canada. I thought you were smart. All right. Doesn't say it. Okay. Debate period typically spans 5 to 7 sitting days. Okay. Final confidence vote expected in late November. Likely November 25th to 28th. Once amendments are proposed and debated. So yeah, that's like 3 weeks away still. So it's weird, eh? People thought, oh, the budget's coming out today, we're going to have an election. It takes a few weeks for the budget, I guess. So, they hold 170 seats and need 172 votes. They may seek support from independents or abstentions from NDP, which holds 7 seats. So, yeah. I guess we have some time to see if we'll have an election, or it gives a lot of time actually for more people to join the Liberals. You might even get some NDP joining the Liberals, because at this point they can't even probably avoid staplers for their office right now. So they'll want to maybe join the gravy train, the Liberal gravy train. They see where the future is pointing, the commie Canada future. Okay, so that's it. That's all for today. Thanks for joining. We'll be back. Not a good day. But I wasn't really expecting good news. So I wasn't disappointed in that regard. So today's November 4th. So The next thing will be Friday, November 7th. We'll see what shittery goes on till then. So until then, have a nice night.